back, everyone, to Israel Beyond the Headlines here in the Israel Government Press Office. Today is my honor to welcome back Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman and communication specialist for foreign media in the Office of the Prime Minister of Israel. Thank you so much for joining us again, Shosh.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for all the hard work that you've been doing for our country in these hard times.
Thank you.
We're in the middle of historic days. Nearly 2 weeks ago, now Israel and the United States launched Operation Roaring Lion, a never-before-done operation to remove the existential threat posed by the terrorist regime in Iran. We've successfully eliminated many terrorists of the Iranian terror regime leadership, as well as the supreme leader of the Iranian terror regime, Ali Khamenei. Under his leadership, Iran funded and armed terror organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah. On October 7th, 2023, the Iranian terror proxy Hamas massacred our people and their communities, known as the deadliest days for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and more than 1,200 people were murdered and more than 200 people were kidnapped. Khamenei publicly praised the attack and for years openly called for Israel's destruction, declaring that Israel will not exist in 25 years and referring to it as a cancerous tumor. His death is not a celebration, but the end of a figure who dedicated decades to threatening the existence of millions. So Shosh, by removing the threat of the Iranian regime leadership, how will it change the future of Iran?
Sure. So I think we should go back into time and set the scene just on a historical level and start with talking about what happened 47 years ago. 47 years ago, the Shah fell of Iran, and Khomeini, the first supreme leader of Iran, he came into power. He took power. There were a large number of protests, and it turned Iran into the Islamic Republic of Iran. And this turned into a country that was dedicated to calling for the annihilation of the state of Israel. And they didn't just say it. Over the decades, they built it. They literally built nuclear capabilities, ballistic missile capabilities that pose immediate threats to the state of Israel. 47 years ago, the first hostages they ever took, besides the Iranian people, this regime, they took Americans captive. They took Americans captive at the embassy in Tehran. For 441 days, they held Americans captive, about 60 people. And it was a fight to bring them home. Those were the first captives, the first hostages. And the last hostages the Ayatollah regime took were our people. On October 7th, they took them because they fund, they trained, they financially prop up Hamas, a terror organization that sat on our back doorstep in Gaza. They took our people hostage on October 7th, about 250 of them. So we have to start off by talking about the history of who these people are. All they have been trying to do in this region is destabilize it and export their terrorism that not only hurts us, it's murdered our people, it's massacred our people, it's done the same thing to Americans, American soldiers in the Middle East, in addition to Americans in Lebanon, around the region. And on October 7th, there were Americans that were murdered on our kibbutzim on October 7th. They were kidnapped on that horrific day as well. You mentioned at your introduction, October 7th was the deadliest days for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And we came out of that. We came out of that. But to remove the Ayatollah regime will stabilize this region. And the Prime Minister said at the beginning of Operation Roaring Lion that this could usher in a new era of peace we have never seen before in this region. And we are hoping that that is what will happen here.
And what is the future of Hamas and Hezbollah by eliminating the Iranian regime?
Can you imagine you're cutting off the head of a snake? What will happen to its arms, to its tentacles? It will no longer be alive. And that's the goal here, is we have been fighting Iran's terror proxies for decades. When it comes to Hezbollah on our northern front in Lebanon, that's their strongest terror proxy. I mean, these are very serious forms of terrorism that our people have been experiencing for years. But we also have Hamas inside of Gaza, like I said, propped up by the Iranian regime, in addition to the Houthis Houthis in Yemen, who for quite some time have also tried to fire ballistic missiles at our people, and we know have also posed a serious threat. So in terms of cutting off the Ayatollah regime, we will cut off these terror proxies that exist. And the only reason why they exist is to threaten our existence, threaten the Jewish state, the only Jewish state in the world, the only place we call home as Jews. This is our ancestral homelands. And there's a mission here for the Iranian regime to not only call death to us, but to create death for us. And that's what their terror proxies have done for decades now. We have stood up to that terrorism, and the United States has done so as well. They know the threat that this poses not only to us, but to their own citizens as well.
So what was the reason that Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump decided to launch Operation Roaring Lion?
So over the summer in June, during the 12-day war, where we struck the nuclear capabilities of the Ayatollah regime, the only reason why they had it was to pose a threat to us. And so we set back that nuclear capability, and we took this historic leap together, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, to take a stand, to finally to face this Iranian regime who has not only, like I mentioned before, said what they wanted to do, but they've created the tools to do so. We've stood up, we hit these nuclear capabilities together with the help from the American B-2 bombers. That was a historic moment in our history. We rolled back these nuclear capabilities. And within the last 6 months, since that happened back in June, we've noticed that the Ayatollah regime was saying things on the surface in negotiations and doing things that weren't matching those words. And what we saw was that the Iranian regime was building more underground locations, underground bunkers to expand their ballistic missile program and nuclear capabilities, that if we didn't go after it now and neutralize that threat, it would become immune to attack in the future. If we didn't face this threat now, if we faced it in 5 years, 10 years, can you imagine the weapons we would have to be dealing with? President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu decided to take a stand for civilization, to defend the free world, our Western democratic societies, because we know the only reason why Iran has these weapons to begin with is for our mass destruction. They say it, they mean it, we've seen it, we will never allow it to take place. We also had intelligence that showed us that Iran was likely going to strike us first, that they were going to strike either American bases and citizens in the Middle East and the state of Israel, and we needed to act. And with the relationship that Prime Minister Netanyahu has formed with President Trump on this incredible level that we're seeing play out now, we are not only making history, but we're seeing history take place for the Iranian people. Can you imagine how they're feeling right now, knowing that finally, as they've been calling for help, please help us. Help is actually here. It was on the way, and it's here. It's taking place to ensure that these Iranian people have a better future. They've been calling for one for 47 years now.
Mm-hmm. And my next question was going to be why it was so critical to remove the ballistic missile and nuclear threat. And I think you answered it, that, we couldn't wait around for them to use them. And as you said, there was intelligence saying that they were going to use them first, which maybe people don't understand.
Sure, and maybe not necessarily use them right now, but if we didn't neutralize this threat and take away this threat, what could happen into 10 years? We always say that if you're calling for our mass destruction, can you imagine what an Ayatollah regime would do if they actually had those weapons? We've seen it on October 7th. Hamas and its terrorists have been calling for our destruction. They've just been mimicking and regurgitating the words of the Ayatollah regime. And they called for our deaths and our murders and massacring us. And we saw that. They stormed our border on October 7th and they ransacked our communities. It was truly one of the days that stays with us and it lives with us. And we've been in this 2.5-year war fighting Iran's terror proxies. It's all connected. The head of the snake is Iran, and its tentacles and its arms are its terror proxies that work to suffocate the state of Israel. But we're so strong and we're so resilient, and our brave soldiers not only they're heroes, they have changed the state of Israel. We have defense like no other, and the Americans have recognized that, and their officials have said that during Operation Roaring Lion, There is no stronger alliance than the United States of America and the state of Israel. Our security forces and our brave soldiers who are operating to neutralize this threat, they are the strongest in the world. These allies, when we work together, we can create enormous change that we've never seen in this region in decades and centuries.
So we know that since Operation Roaring Lion, Iran has decided to strike 12 other countries, injuring dozens of people and killing several others. So what does this say about the Iranian regime?
Well, unfortunately, it just shows who they really are. Not only have they been saying it, as I keep saying, they say it, they want to destroy, and they do. And they've been building and they act. And that's what we've seen played out. The prime minister actually said a lot of these countries who were attacked, they're now coming to us to cooperate with us, standing on our side because they see the evil that we are up against. This is really a battle and an operation of good versus evil, standing up for our beliefs and our societies, our Western societies and democratic values. And President Trump saw that. And he actually told the prime minister, this is a story that I heard firsthand from the prime minister, that before President Trump was reelected, before his second term as the president of the United States, he told the prime minister, Iran can never have nuclear weapons. And this is something he said, and he knew it, and he recognized it. And the prime minister has been saying this for years. If we don't stand up to this threat, it would create immense chaos in this region. And together, they've stood up to this imminent threat that our people have faced, in addition to the United States and Americans. And so that's why we're here today.
And what does the prime minister want for the Iranian people?
The prime minister has been speaking to the Iranian people for decades now because he knows the talented, the intelligent people that they are. This is a society where we here in Israel, we used to be partners with the Iranians. We used to have relations with them. There's so many Iranian Jews who actually yearn to go back to one of the ancient civilizations of the world, Persia, and take back their culture and live in that land and just be back. There's so many Jews who connect to the story of Persia because they come from there. But he's been speaking to them for decades because he knows the oppression and the brutality they have been living under. The Iranian people not only have no rights, they have no decision to elect who they want. Women have to cover up. There's morality police, where if one shed of your hair is showing, look what we've seen in these protests. They're getting massacred, they're murdered, they get hanged in public squares. This is a society who has been living under this oppression, but it's a society that knows better because they want a democratic government. They want a world like ours where you have the ability to choose. But because Iran has been funding their terror proxies for so long, it has actually caused them to have poverty within their own country. They don't have access to basic needs the way that you and I here in the state of Israel do, right? They don't have access to water the way that we do. They have a huge water crisis, electricity, in addition to food. And we know this because the billions of dollars that Iran has, instead of spending it on their own people, they spend it on their terror proxies to annihilate the state of Israel. That's what they prioritize. They rather put it into terrorism than actually helping their own people who have been struggling with severe economic constraints. And we actually saw that back in January. The Iranian people are so brave. They stood up in January after the despair they've been going through economically, and they said enough is enough. They took to the streets. We saw hundreds of thousands of people all across the country of Iran take a stand against this Ayatollah regime. And they protested for a better future. But what happened to them? Upwards of 30,000 protesters were murdered. 30,000 people murdered by their own government just for taking a stand inside of their main cities and regions across the country to ask for a better future. And this is something the prime minister has been saying. And now he is saying to them, it is now to create the conditions for you to take the future into your own hands and do something with it. But it's up to you to do that. And that's first, we need to remove this existential threat that we're facing with their nuclear capabilities and their ballistic missile capabilities. And that's the moment that we're in right now. And the Prime Minister has said to them, your moment is coming. Wait. But when it comes, you need to take it, because this is to liberate you. This is not an operation against you. We want to see them prosper and succeed.
And we see this ideology that you mentioned before with the terror regime putting, the regime before their civilians in Gaza as well, with Hamas stealing all the aid and using their civilians as human shields.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point that you make, because we're actually seeing that here in Operation Roaring Lion. We've noticed that the Iranian regime is actually moving military infrastructure inside of civilian neighborhoods in Iran, as we're trying to target this infrastructure because it poses not only a threat to the Iranian people, but to us. We target it and we realize it's in civilian neighborhoods. They're just taking a page out of their terror proxies books. We've seen Hamas do this, where they operate out of hospitals. They put hostages in humanitarian locations. Like you said, they steal humanitarian aid from their people, and they use resources that are supposed to be for their own, and they prosper off of it, and they get they benefit off of it. And so we've seen this. Hezbollah is the exact same way, taking advantage of the Lebanese people, holding them hostage. Each one of Iran's proxies are holding their own people captive, from people in Yemen to the Lebanese to people inside of Gaza, the Palestinian people. They are hostages of the Iranian regime.
And what has been the toll on the Israeli people of the Iranian ballistic missile attacks?
Sure. So our people are so resilient. Have you ever seen a population, a group of people so strong before? You and I both know we've been running into shelters for the last 11 days, working to protect ourselves, but also Israelis are following Home Front Command, every single detail of it. Remember, we're getting these warning notifications before the sirens actually go off, where Israelis are told, okay, in about 5 to 7 minutes, based on where you live in Israel, you'll get a warning notification that a ballistic missile barrage from Iran, or now we're seeing from Hezbollah, is going to be targeting your area. Take cover. So everyone does take cover. They all listen. You can see it's just crickets in the streets, and you look, and everyone really is listening because they know the threat that the Iranian regime is posing to us and the severity of these ballistic missiles. We've seen so many of the attacks this time against us. They're using these cluster munitions, where when it is targeted, you see the explosions in the air of all these different munitions, and it scatters and it drops and it can tear through buildings, these munitions that are breaking apart from the actual ballistic missile. And we've seen damage from it. There were actually 2 people, construction workers, that were killed just 2 days ago from this type of cluster bomb. But we've also seen the attacks the Iranian regime is doing. They're targeting only civilian neighborhoods.
I was going to say,
right.
Like all the people that have died and been murdered from these attacks, they're all innocent civilians. And you can really see the difference, that like how we target their terror regime, and they're just targeting civilians.
Absolutely. And we can see that so clearly in Beit Shemesh. One of the first days of Operation Roaring Lion, Iran targeted, once again, a civilian population in Beit Shemesh, and it directly hit a synagogue, one of their ballistic missiles, and it unfortunately killed 9 people, which is extremely tragic. And the Prime Minister actually went to Beit Shemesh, and he walked around that area to see the devastation from that ballistic missile, and he actually met with some of the survivors of this attack, who they were all cut up. They have injuries from this. They lost family members in this attack. But he was there, and he said, look at how the Iranian regime targets our people. There's no military infrastructure in sight. This was a densely populated neighborhood, and you can see that very, very clearly. Of course, there were stories of miracles from that day, stories of tragedy, but also stories of resilience. When the Prime Minister met with a mother who survived with her toddler on that day, we went to Hadassah Hospital, and he met with her, and she said, Prime Minister, keep going, because they understand this threat. She lost her husband in this attack. but they understand the threat that it poses. We know we've all been under this terror regime targeting
I think
us.
that just shows the resilience that she said that.
Absolutely. This is the nation of Israel, and we understand what this fight is about. We've known about it for decades. Our people have been murdered, massacred, raped, tortured because of this regime, and we know what we're fighting up against.
And around the world and in the United States, there's been a population that opposes Operation Roaring Lion, and they chant, "We don't want this war, we didn't ask for this war." So what is your message to them? What do they not understand?
I think people forget sometimes the history of these conflicts. It's not a conflict that started yesterday. It's not a conflict that started 6 months ago with Operation Rising Lion with the United States, where we targeted these nuclear infrastructure locations in Iran. This is something that's been going on for 47 years, that's been targeting Americans specifically. It's been targeting Europeans. It's been targeting anyone who really believes in the values that our societies do. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast. For 47 years, they've been calling for our destruction, and they mean it. We had our first hostages, foreign hostages, who were taken by the Islamic Republic of Iran were Americans at an embassy in Tehran, the American embassy. 60 people were held captive. I mean, we value life. And the last people who were taken hostage were Israelis. It started with the Americans. It ended with us. And we are taking out this Ayatollah regime to ensure this will never happen again. And the Prime Minister, I want to echo his words, because he said, after October 7th, which was one of the darkest days of our modern history that all of us have lived through, is he said 2 days after that horrific day, we are going to change the face of the Middle East. And since he made that commitment, we have done so. When it comes to Hamas, we have totally taken out their capabilities militarily. We have absolutely devastated the Houthis in Yemen. We brought Hezbollah to their knees in Lebanon. And now, here we are standing up to the number one bully in the region, the number one state sponsor of terror. And we're doing it with the United States, the strongest ally we've ever had. And together, we create strength that we've never seen before in history. And so, yeah, going back to your question, we are changing who we are in the Middle East and what we stand for and what we represent.
And is there anything like specifically that they don't understand when it comes to this regime? Like maybe they don't understand the evil behind it, because they could, there's been a lot of people saying that, like, they wouldn't actually use the nuclear weapons. They wouldn't actually use them. Like, but what they don't see is that when a terror regime chants, you know, we death to Israel, death to America, and they have nuclear weapons, you know, we should believe them. And is there anything that you think they should understand that I didn't mention?
I think they need to just understand, you know, when Iran calls for our destruction, they also call for the United States' destruction. They call us the little Satan. They call the United States the big Satan. And together, Iran knows is that we are a really, really strong alliance. And when we have two leaders together, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who can stand up to that, I mean, we've seen the Ayatollah regime crumble. But going back to anyone who doesn't understand the objectives here, we need to go back and talk about how you're a target, how the Iranian regime wants you dead. It wants your people dead. It wants your civilization to be dead as well. I think we're actually getting those warning sirens, that warning notifications that we could be seeing.
I know it's in the north.
Some type of attack from Iran, so it's in the north.
It's in the north, but
yeah, this is what we've been doing. We've been actively checking our phones. We get these notifications, and we're looking to see which areas are we going to have to take cover and shelter, and wherever your family and your loved ones are located, you're calling them just to make sure that they're okay, because we know how serious this is.
It's a crazy reality. Shosh, do you have any message from the Prime Minister?
I do. And I actually want to pull it up on my phone. And it's something that we put out yesterday. And this is what the Prime Minister has been saying for decades now. People of Iran, we are waging a historic war for liberty. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to remove the Ayatollah regime and gain your freedom. Together with the United States, we are hitting the tyrants of Tehran harder than ever. The Ayatollah is no more, and I know you don't want him replaced with another tyrant. So you must act. We are creating the conditions for you to do so. We have hit countless regime targets. We have taken out thousands of IRGC thugs and hundreds of their missile launchers. We are focused on regime targets and are doing our best not to harm the people of Iran. We are your ally, your best ally. We fully respect your sovereignty, your culture, and your heritage. You asked for our help, and help has arrived. We will continue to hit with growing force the tyrants who terrorized you for decades. The Ayatollahs and their henchmen are on their run, but those cowards have nowhere to hide. In the coming days, we will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny. Your dreams will become a reality. When the time is right, and that time is fast approaching, we will pass the torch to you. Be ready to seize the moment. Gives you chills, doesn't it?
It's amazing.
Because it shows that Israel is a beacon of hope in the region. We are people who want peace. We are people who want prosperity for those who are oppressed. We want to see a free world, and we're standing up to that. And we know the Iranian people don't want this. We know that even polling shows that. About 90% of the Iranian people, they don't want to live like this. And the Prime Minister has known this for years. He's been speaking to them for years because he knows these are talented people. These are intelligent people. They know the terror reign that they are under. And this is the message that he's been sending to them through Operation Roaring Lion.
Thank you so much, Shosh. Thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you so much for watching.